Willie D Live.
What's up, family? Iran alleges that it struck a U.S. vessel, and the United States says, well, that never happened. Question is, family, who do you believe? Let's check out a couple of articles. Let's start with this article in the New York Post. Iran fires on U.S. warship in Strait of Hormuz after Trump announces plans to guide ships out. Iran said Monday it had fired upon an American naval vessel on the first day of a bid by Washington to force open the Strait of Hormuz to global shipping. The semi-official Fars news agency, which has close ties to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, initially claimed an unidentified U.S. ship was hit by two missiles near the port of Jask, southeast of the strait, after ignoring orders to halt. U.S. Central Command denied the claim on social media, saying on X, "No U.S. Navy ships have been struck. U.S. forces are supporting Project Freedom and enforcing the naval blockade on Iranian ports." A senior Iranian official then told Reuters that Tehran had fired a warning shot and that it was unclear whether the warship had been damaged. So that's one report. And here's a conflicting report coming from the New York Post. U.S. denies Iranian claim that it hit American warship as Trump launches mission to reopen Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. military on Monday rejected Iranian claims to have struck an American warship trying to enter the Strait of Hormuz and said the first commercial ships had transited the critical waterway as part of President Donald Trump's new mission to guide stranded vessels. Several reported attacks followed Trump's announcement, including the United Arab Emirates saying Iran had launched missiles at the country for the first time since a ceasefire was declared a month ago. Iranian state media, meanwhile, reported it had no plans to target the UAE. The South Korean government also said an explosion and fire had occurred on a South Korean-operated cargo ship. Over the weekend, Trump announced that starting Monday, the U.S. military would help free ships that have been locked up and unable to transit the key trade route amid the maritime standoff between Tehran and Washington. Iran signaled an aggressive response to this latest bid to break its stranglehold over the strait, which has left global shipping at an effective standstill and sent energy prices spiraling. Tehran issued a new map and a flurry of statements that sought to reassert its control. Early Monday, it claimed to have stopped U.S. destroyers from entering the strait. After the U.S. warships ignored several radio warnings, cruise missiles, rockets, and combat drones were fired near them, Army Public Relations said in a statement carried by the semi-official Tasnim news agency. So we can stop right there, fam. So who do you believe? Do you believe that the U.S. warships was actually struck, or do you believe that Tehran is playing games? Both nations practice propaganda. Both nations lie to support their narratives. So it's hard for me to determine who's telling the truth. But since I have so much experience with America, and there have been so many times that I've been lied to, I've been led to believe one thing when it was another. There have been so many conspiracies involving people who I held in high regard, who were murdered by the U.S. government. I tend to believe anybody but the U.S. government. That's just me, fam. I know some of y'all who got it easier in the country, who get a lot of extra privileges. I know some of y'all can't stand what I'm saying because, you're living in the land of milk and honey and everything's funny until it happens to you, right? That's why those people, the peanut gallery, was laughing when Trump was talking about invading Cuba. He's bragging about invading Cuba. We're talking about just straight up violating an international law. He's going to invade Cuba. He's going to kill people. We're just focused on the so-called leadership, but we don't think about the innocent lives that were destroyed in the process. Let me see if I can perhaps make this relatable to some of you. Back in 1996, there was a movie released called A Time to Kill, starring Samuel L. Jackson. He played the character Carl Lee Haley. I remember that year because that was the year that the Ghetto Boys put out one of our most critically acclaimed albums, The Resurrection. The movie depicted this little black girl who was Samuel L. Jackson's daughter in the film being brutally RAP'd by two white guys who beat the rap. I mean, they did her bad, fam. They violated her, took her virginity. Little girl, they destroyed her womb where she could never have children again. They urinated on her. They hung her, but the tree branch was so weak that she fell from the tree branch. So they picked her up and drove her to a bridge and threw her over the bridge 60 feet below the surface. Well, just like, people tend to, these uncivilized mutts in the South especially, but all over the United States, but especially the South, Mississippi in this situation, they got off. They got off. An all-white jury acquitted them. Rather than taking that L lying down, Samuel Jackson got a shotgun and he was lying in wait as they came down the stairs in the county courthouse celebrating their victory. And he blasted both of them. He also inadvertently popped one of the police officers who did not die. He survived. So now Samuel Jackson is on trial. Carl Lee Haley is on trial, right? For murdering these two white guys, and he has an all-white jury. Matthew McConaughey delivers one of the most powerful scenes in film history. He asked the all-white jury to close their eyes and imagine a little girl walking home, and she's accosted by these two drunken guys who take her and violate her body and beat her and lynch her, and then throw her body over into the water below. Now, he painted the picture in more detail than I'm doing it. He painted it all the way in detail, and what he was doing was recounting the details that they had already heard to an extent. So the whole while, in their mind, they're thinking about this little black girl. They got a picture of a little black girl in their minds, because remember, he told them to close your eyes and imagine. I want you to imagine this little girl. Then when he got to the end, he said, now I want you to imagine that she's white. And they opened their eyes, and during while he was delivering his speech, some of them were actually crying, as he delivered the details. They were crying and going on. So I said that to say this: some of us lack empathy until it's relatable, until it's something, it happens to us or someone we love, somebody we care about. See, that all-white jury, they didn't care about the little black girl being violated, hung, and murdered. They didn't care nothing about it. But when they told him it was, when he said, imagine that she was white, now all of a sudden they can see her as a human being. Now they see it. And this is what's happening with these little countries that America is taking over, that they're invading, that they're dropping bombs on. We can't relate because we are not related to those people. We don't have relationships with those people. We don't have relationships with people in Venezuela. Well, I do. Well, I know a few people in Venezuela, but overall, Americans don't have relationships with people who lives in Venezuela. We don't have relationships with Iranians, right? So all we look at those people as they're people, but they're way over here. And if our government says that these people are a threat, if our government tells us that their government is a threat, then we should believe them because our government is looking out for us, even though on a daily basis we know that not to be true. But we'd like to imagine that that is true. I want to read to you just a few comments that I saw online that is very disturbing and just shows you, how disconnected that some Americans are. This is some comments from the article that I read earlier in the New York Post. One guy says, we are fighting a religious ideology willing to self-destruct because they believe in the end they will be triumphant and rule the West. This has been going on for thousands of years. Either we destroy the ability to blockade international waters or the world's economy becomes subject to the real will of radicals. Shameful how other countries are not supporting this effort, and we're willing to live under the threats of a nuclear-armed Iran. Let me ask you something, family. What threats have harmed us the most in the last 47 years? 57 years, 67. Has it been the threat of Iranians or the threat of Americans? Because last I checked, Americans kill Americans by the tens of thousands every year, not Iranians. So while we sitting back thinking about the boogeyman, Iran, the boogeyman who ain't killed not one American in the United States in the last 50 years, who ain't dropped one bomb on the United States, who ain't sent one drone, who ain't even sent a paper airplane over this way. We continue to be subjected to the violence, the rampant violence in America, committed by Americans. I said it before, fam, when you go and get that alarm on your car or your house, you go buy that firearm. You're not buying it for Iranians. You ain't got Iranians in mind when you start thinking, when you're pointing that gun and you're pointing that gun at that target. You're thinking about Americans. Somebody else said, time to get these boys some action with their 70-something virgins waiting. Happy to oblige. These are people that are totally disconnected, that don't know nothing except what they hear on Fox News. We also need to find the Chinese and Russian officials, this is a good one, who sold Iran the super high-tech mines that they made it possible for them to easily shut down the strait. Give them a good talking to or something. Give them a good talk. And then some other fool says, smart point. China and Russia have been arming Iran with advanced capabilities for years. Trump should make clear that enabling attacks on international shipping carries real consequences. What is he going to make clear to China and Russia? Nothing. He ain't going to do nothing because China and Russia fight back. China and Russia put belt to ass. He ain't going to do jack. What he going to do? Point at him and go, now listen here, you Chinese and Russians, that's all he going to do. He ain't gonna do jack. He gonna bully those who ain't capable of fighting him back, who ain't not just fighting him back, but who he's going to bully those who are incapable of defending themselves. That's the play. All this tough talk, man, is coming from dudes who are bullies. I find it extremely ironic that Trump is a warmonger who dodged the draft 5 times for a country that he has gotten the most out of, arguably, than anybody in the last year. Well, you could say the last, what's that, 9 years, almost 10 years. But what say you, fam? Drop a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. No more talk.